Hey, happy Sunday. I had some ideas for what to talk about this week, but they were overridden by basically another theme that's something I want to talk about, which is owning who I am, embracing me as I am. That doesn't mean that I accept the things I think of as shortcomings as absolute. Who am I really? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? I want to play to my strengths, and that's what I'm working on. So just left the ghetto house, and I'm headed into work. It's got 6:45, 6:45-ish, and wait, let me show you something real quick and see if we can see it. I love these two little old ladies in the ghetto. They have the most beautiful flowers. And these two ladies live next door to each other. They're about 800 years old, and it's like a competition between their yards, and it's awesome. I love that. It's like in the middle of torn down houses and kind of a rough neighborhood. These two little old ladies are living with beautiful front yards. It's pretty cool. I realized I hadn't vlogged much this week, or recorded much for the vlog this week, and I thought it might be me just being lazy, but the truth is, the subject that I was going to vlog on, which I can't even recall, if that tells you how far I got, it just never came to fruition because I kept getting distracted by other things. But it dawned on me that what was distracting me was the concept of how pretentious people are, and they don't even realize it. The stories they tell themselves and believe, even though they're not true. And the reason this is a big deal is that when I was a kid, I struggled with other people's stories because I was always seeing things as they were, so to speak, at least much more than other people were, I guess. And I was sad a lot, and I would look at a house and someone would say, oh, it's a beautiful house, but I would see the decay in the house, if that makes sense. And it may not. But I wouldn't see always just the beauty of that old house. I would see the imperfections and those things. And I had to learn to look at the good and learn to look at the beauty. And then I started telling myself stories, and that's how I got way overweight, and that's how I got to create My Date with Natalie Portman, because of the stories I was telling myself. And we still do to some degree, I think, no matter how hard we try. But I've been trying to strip that down. I've been really trying to look at myself as I am, not as I see myself. Sometimes that's through the eyes of other people. Sometimes that's through the camera. Physically, when I get a shot of myself, I'm like, man, who's that huge guy? Even when I've lost weight, even when I'm in shape, I don't look like I feel. And I think most people, that's true. We don't look like we feel. We have a self-image kind of like on the Matrix, and that's not always true. It's because we don't feel the way we look. Yeah. So anyway, let me see if I can say feel the way we look several more times. But anyway, so how do we strip that down? How do you get past that? And I can't tell someone else how to do it. I can only tell myself what I'm doing. I can only tell you what I'm going through, and that is, I have to take myself. I have to take a hard look at the mirror. I have to take a hard look at results of my actions, not just the motivation of my actions, but what do my actions result in? What are the things that actually come as a result of what I do? Now, you can have the biggest heart in the world and try to help somebody, but if you're doing things and their life is getting worse, your intentions are not nearly as important as what's happening. Enablers, that's a big thing with enablers. They have the best of intentions. They want you to be happy, but they don't understand that sometimes for people to be happy, they have to deal with things they don't want to deal with. So instead of making them deal with those issues, they enable them to continue with whatever the bad behavior is. You see this a lot with alcoholics and addicts in general, period. Anyway, so that's what I've been thinking about this week. That's what's going on. I'm kind of curious if you, what lies do you tell yourself? What lies do you believe, and what stories are you telling yourself? Maybe lies is harsh. Maybe it's not true. Maybe it's not really a lie. It's a story that, I mean, stories are how we cope with things, okay? Stories are how we make sense of the world. So lie might be harsh, but for me, I think of them as lies because I have to get to the truth so that I can be the person I want to be, which is always at least a little bit better than the person I am. And I've got a tire that is low on air because my truck is bumping, so I will have to stop and put air in the tire, or all my tires. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking. That's what's been going on this week. That's why this part of the vlog is so long, because I haven't vlogged all week. And yeah, that's the way this week is rolling, man. Then today, I went and met with a lady who did my taxes and lost my wallet. And then I just found my wallet, so I went back and got it. Basically, I planned on vlogging earlier in the day, and my day got sidetracked by chasing down my wallet. But my taxes are done. That's the important part. So, in embracing myself, a strange thing happened yesterday that, well, I guess technically it happened Wednesday, but yesterday is when I found it. I got a message from a girl I dated when I was 19, and she was the first, like, real love of my life. And it was odd because I kind of gotten to a point where I figured I'd never hear from her again. But with the magic technology, we may have an opportunity to actually just catch up and see how we're each doing, which is great. I think that's awesome. It's also important that when that happens, if that happens to you, you have to realize, which I'm sure you probably do. No, I'm not. Neither of you are the same person you were 27 years ago. Yeah, it was 27 years ago we dated. Neither of us is the same person. But it'd be kind of cool to catch up and see where her life went after we broke up. I should say she broke up. I didn't want to break up. So she was smarter of the two of us, because I can honestly say I wasn't ready at 19 for the marriage and kids and things. Thought I was I was turning 20, but yeah, couldn't even drink legally yet. So there was that. Then earlier this week, something exciting happened. Someone mentioned that as a Natalie Portman fan, Star Wars was a big disappointment for me with Natalie Portman. I kind of felt she was miscast, and I still stand by the fact that she might have still been miscast. But it was brought up that it may not have been her fault, that because there was no chemistry between her and the gentleman who played Anakin, who was, let me look it up. So Hayden Christensen played Anakin Skywalker. He would have to be at least as responsible for the lack of chemistry. Still not a great role for her, I don't think. I think the final edit, the character was left to be relatively flat. So I mentioned that I got my taxes done by a professional, and there's a reason for that. It's not just how complex my taxes were this year, which they were pretty complex. It has to do with trying to simplify my life. I'm trying to free up things, and there's a 4x4 model of this, which I'll try and get a copy of to put on my vlog here as I speak to you. But what it comes down to is there are things that you love and there's things that you don't love, and there are things you have to do and things you don't have to do, right? So the things that you don't have to do that you don't love, you should eliminate, period. The things you have to do that you don't love, as much as possible, you should pay someone else to do them, or find a way that you spend less time with them or less effort on them. Then that will allow you to focus on both the things you have to do and don't have to do that you love. And that's where you can really make a difference. So I pay someone to cut grass at a house that I'm getting ready to sell, and I wanted to pay someone to cut grass here in the ghetto house, but I found out living in the ghetto, there is a lot of truth to the fact that you can't get the same services or attention that you get in the suburbs in a nicer neighborhood. I can't get someone to come cut my grass here. There are no reasonable, there's no close food stores. Getting real food is difficult down here if you don't travel. Now I work close and I pass food stores on the way to and from, so I just shop on my way home. But it's just a point of living in the ghetto. Just to talk about owning who you are and embracing who you are and what you can do and what you can't do. What I love is music and video and telling stories, and I'm focusing on that. I actually have an idea for a web series that I plan to shoot late summer.